Hello, hello, Américas. Boa tarde, good afternoon, buenas tardes for everyone. I hope you are doing great. I hope you are super excited for this launch as well. I'm actually super excited. It's the fourth time actually that I'm delivering this space. So I'm really happy actually to be finally here. And just before we start, actually, I would just like to give you the opportunity. If you'd like to also follow the slides, you can also access this link, and then you're gonna also like have access to the slides that I'm gonna be present here, so you can also like follow in the same time. So feel free to do that. And just before we start this whole launch and this whole space, I know that all of you are super excited for that. I just would like actually to introduce myself. I'm Júlia Torres, as most of you know, and I'm the IVPOD 2021. So basically for the next year. And just a bit of the information about my exact experience actually. I'm actually from Brazil. I'm currently here in Recife in my hometown. I'm super happy to be here actually. It's a really nice weather. And actually most of my experience in ISAC was actually in Brazil. I joined the organization as finance, as a member in finance, and then I had the opportunity to be V, and then I was V 2 times because I was VP and SP. And then actually on the way after the first year that I was in the organization, I really fell in love in the organization, like for Isaac and everything. And then after that, I actually have the opportunity to go to exchange in the other side of the world, a bit far away from Brazil. And then it was actually in Australia that I also joined Isaac there. I was actually a member for a short period of time. It was not a lot, but I actually could see Isaac in a totally different perspective compared to Brazil. And then after that, when I was in Australia, I actually went back to Brazil, and it was when I lived my true EB experience. And then after that, I was like, okay, I don't know what I want to do next. And then I was pretty sure that actually I really like to still be a member in the organization, to still try to do something. And then it was when I actually decided to apply to go to Bahrain. And then I was actually MC in Isaac in Bahrain. So I went to a completely and totally different culture and Isaac as well, honestly. And then I was MC there. And then on the way, something's happened. And I actually ended up being MCP in Isaac in Bahrain. And it was actually a really highlight in my experience. I think it's opened my eyes for a lot of things, to break some mindsets, and also, I don't know, to live a totally different culture. And then after that, I was like, okay, I mean, I would like still to try to do something in the organization again. And then it was actually my last experience as MC. Last year was actually in the Netherlands. I was MCTM and OD there. And as you can see, like, I was basically part of all the regions. And one thing that I could realize, it was that basically one of the things, Isaac is basically, we work for the same purpose. Like, we have very strong mission, everyone's working for the same thing, but the way that we actually run the organization, each one of ISAC actually is very different. Like, it's completely different actually, because culture, behaviors, everything is influenced a lot. And actually OD itself is actually very different. Like, I came from ISAC in Brazil where OD is super strong, and I read went to other entities that, like, OD was never a topic, for example. So the way that we actually manage OD and the way that you talk about OD is actually very different. And it was really important for me also to open the eyes and to see, like, how we can actually work with the department, that's basically organization development. And based on that, connect with all these things. And why I'm actually talking about that is because when I talk about OD is very different, I'm actually expecting some kind of different audience here as well in this space for the next few minutes that you're gonna have. That is basically, we are gonna have basically here two types of audience. The first one is that basically that, okay, here we go again. We are gonna talk about the model again. I cannot handle this topic anymore. Every year we talk about the model. Every year the model change. I cannot believe that, like, this is gonna be a topic one more time. And it's not only the MCP, honestly speaking. I'm been there. And the second type of audience that you can expect from this space is that basically the ones that are super excited. That I will not say that's basically all the MCVPs OD, but some of them, I believe that they are super excited for that. And actually, we have a third audience in this space that I would say that is basically the regional office that is like, okay, tell me something new, surprise me. I'm really waiting for that. So basically, you can see that we have very different types of audience, but actually I would like to focus, like, in the two first ones. The regional office is not going to be a priority in this conversation right now. But basically, when I just come back to the audience, I just mentioned that we have two types of audience, right? That the first one is basically like, okay, here we go again. Why we are talking about that? Why we are talking about the model? It's never changed. It's never works. And basically, just to try to understand why we actually have this type of people, why we have this type of mindset. Let's go back a bit, like some years ago, just to explain a bit more of the context of the OD model, like what's happened with the OD model actually in the last 5 years. It was not in 2016 that was the first time that we had OD model. It was actually before that, but I just would like to give a better time frame to focus on that. But basically 2016, the global OD model was not really like very strong. Like it was basically ranking. Like we didn't have like any kind of metrics or any kind of things. It was basically the amount of exchange that we do, and that's it. So it was basically the main things that we have like as OD model. And then it was actually in 16, 17 that we didn't have at all like the OD model. So it was just basically like just a research trying to understand, okay, what I can do like with OD model, how we can make it better, how we can maybe shape better with the reality. So it was basically in 17, 18, after the whole research that we have in 16, 17, that we have like a new old model that it was basically focused on product development, not really growth. So we basically are focused like how could we basically, for example, the sustainability, the health, and when we came with the metrics, the index of health and products, that's basically the HDI and the PDI that we can really relate it today. But we didn't have groups, we didn't have tiers, we didn't have rankings. So it was basically more about the product itself. And then basically when you go to 1819, it was basically the year that we didn't change. Basically, it was the same model that we used to have before. But it was like it's not that we didn't have all the model. We still had it. We could still see the data. We could still see some updates. But it was not really like something new, because basically it was the year that we are trying to revamp the old model. And then actually 1920, that it was almost 1 year ago, it was in the first week of this, in the first of December last year, we have the new old model. That's basically what we are more used to. That was basically the model that we are using until March. That it was the year that we actually implement growth again. We have a better visualization of the tool, as you are used to see. And also we added market reaching HDI. And also the metrics, they are more clear, like giving more direction where you want to go as an organization. So you could see like more, the tool itself was also more clear to see the data, to play a bit with some graphs. So it was basically the whole context of the OD model in the last 5 years. So why actually you have people that they don't really believe in the OD model is because you can see very clear that the OD model was never stable. Every year we actually had this need of like change and revamp, and like 1 year it was not really focused, the other year it was like, okay, let's try to do something. So that's why we have this kind of behaviors and this kind of mindset when you talk about the OD model. However, when you go for the other type of people that they're the ones that are super excited and like, oh my God, I will love it and everything, it was basically the ones that really can understand and can really relate to the importance. Also, that's why I put the MCVPODs, that basically they are the ones that work directly with that. But basically, just to explain to you why actually we have like this whole excitement, and also we really feel connected when you talk about the model. First, to understand that, we need to understand why actually the old model matter, like why we actually have old model. And when I think about like the old model as a tool, I mean, we know that it's a tool, we know that it's a framework, but why we actually have it, why we actually implement it in the organization, is basically that we need to understand where we are as organization. So we need to understand the current context, like the current state of the organization. And also we actually need to understand where we want to go in the organization, like which direction we need to go, how we can go, and like what can drive us in the same direction. Because when you think about IASEC as an organization, we don't have anything that bound us financially or legally speaking as an organization. So basically, when you talk about OD model is actually some things that allows us to speak the same language of what we want to achieve together. So it's basically, it's a tool, it's like that can provide us some direction to go in the same direction, basically, because there is nothing else that actually like can really put us together as an organization, financially or legally speaking, for example. So that's why we actually have the model. And that's why we actually have people really excited about it. And when you actually talk, not only like why the model matters for the organization, that yes, okay, amazing, like we have like this model and everything is perfect, but why actually the entity should really, I don't know, like care about the model. Like what is the connection of the model to the entities itself, not only for ISAC, like globally, let's say. There are actually a lot of points that I could mention, but like the two main ones that actually like the model really should matter for the entities is that first, to provide direction, because in the end, like through the data, through the kind of like metrics that you can analyze, you can see, okay, where do you need to go, or where do you can go in the end, and also make you like to set some priorities for your term. Because when you think about the MC term, like it's 1 year, and I mean honestly, 1 year you cannot do a lot of things. And of course, when you are MC, you have a lot of dreams, you have a lot of things that you really like to drive and to change and to do in that year, but you cannot really fight all the battles that you'd like to do. So basically the old model can also help you to understand, okay, what is my main priority, what I should focus, what I should do. So it's basically like these main points that you should, why the old model matters for the entity. So besides that, just to go back a bit, like when you talk about the context and everything, I mean, I know that, I mean, all of you actually know that when you launched actually the old model 1 year ago, that it was basically on the 1st of December, of course, no one expected all the change that they're going to have this year. So basically, like we have the whole launch, we defined all the metrics, we did everything. And then in the end, we have a pandemic. So that not only affected the whole organization, but actually the whole world in the end. So basically, with the pandemic, we could realize it that actually the old model is not only about a tool, like it's not only about to have a tool for that, because like the old model in the end is not about like, the old model in the end is not like a spreadsheet that you're going to put all the entities and predict the goals for the whole year. Like the old model is not going to be like an expansion model. It's not like a thing that is going to give you all the answers. Like, so don't have this kind of expectation for the old model. It's also not something that is going to a way to for you to micromanage what people need to do, or like provide you all the single actions that you need to do every day. It's also not a membership criteria. It's not a rank tool. It's not a tool to close entities, and it's not an MC plan for the year. So basically, like when the pandemic came, we could realize that we had a lot of expectation when we think about the old model, and also we realized that actually the old model was not really reflecting on what the organization really needed in that period of time with the whole change that we had. So basically, we realized that it was not about to have a tool, but it was about to have the right to. So basically, the model really needs to shape what the organization needs in a certain period of time. So actually, that's why we are here having this amazing space with all of you to actually launch the Global Model 2021. And I really hope that you're super excited for that, because I actually am really excited for that. It's already the 4th time that I'm delivering, and I'm still super excited to deliver this space. So basically, talking about the Global Model 2021, finally, after giving you a bit of context and a bit of explanation where it came from, like what is the model, what is important, I just would like actually to give you a bit of context as well, how the global model was created before we really go like to hold the whole metrics and everything that you are expecting for. But basically, just to explain very brief, how was the process of creation for the model? First, we started with a working space with the OD responsible during the OD summit in July. In that period, actually, we didn't still have any kind of idea if it's going to be a project, if we're going to have our OD model still this semester, if it's going to be only the next year. But we still like to start to have some conversation and get some insights how it's going to look like. And then after that, after July, we actually in August, we decided to have the global model as a project. So it was basically when we started the whole process of the project. So basically have the closure, that it was when in August I communicate to the network that yes, like we are not going to use the OD dashboard anymore, that they are going to have the global model of 2021. So we are not going to use like any kind of, just to not confuse people, to still use the old OD model that we used to have, and give them some like expectation, set some expectation for what was coming. So basically shut down the OD dashboard. I know that some of you got very sad because I received 1,000 of notification like requesting access to the framework. And then also it was the moment that we have the process documentation. So it was basically in that space that I document everything that we needed to do for the live study model that we had. And then after that, it was when we started the whole hard work. So basically we start to collect the inputs, insights, and feedback from AI regional office or the responsible steering team through a survey. And then after that, we start the whole consolidation of that. So like getting the main sites, like what should be the main direction and everything. And then after that, we have the whole definition of the OD model foundation, the elements and the metrics definition. And then after that, we have the data projection and validation. And then finally, we have the whole OD dashboard creation. Was not really a creation because it was more revamping from what we already had before. So, but it's still like we need to like change a lot of things that we had in the last OD dashboard. And then based on that, after a lot of feedback and input later, we finally have the OD model 2021. So basically now I'm going to explain to you very clear what are the metrics and like everything that you can expect from this model. And then just before I just explain to you, I just want to refresh your memory very fast. Just to put everyone in the same page. So this was the OD model 1920. In case you don't remember, you're not more familiar with that, the pandemic made you forgot everything. Now you remember that basically we have the PDI and we also have the HDI, where the PDI we have as main elements, the better, faster, more, and sustainable. And the HDI, it was basically focused on finance, people, and market, where finance, for example, it was like the finance standards, people, it was basically the TM process, and market was basically like the data related to signups. So it was basically how the OD model looked like in a very like brief overview. And then now is how the OD model is gonna look like. So basically, hope you pay attention. I'm just making a bit of like suspense, you know, like, but I hope you are super excited about that. But just to understand first the direction that we're going with the OD model. So basically have some foundations that we had since the beginning to create the whole framework and the whole metrics. First, this OD model is going to be about the entity. So basically, don't expect any kind of metrics related with growth, because basically you don't want to create any kind of competition like we're using the OD model. Basically, the OD model is about your entity. So it's basically about the entity improvement over competition. Second is basically provide analytical context and clear output to the entities. Third one is basically focus on improving the subsystems of the organization. Fourth one is basically balance between short and long-term actions and results. So how we can also not think like in a long-term and a short-term, but how we can have a good balance when you think about the metrics and the direction that we are going. And the last one is basically build the OD model to last. When I say that, it's not that like, oh, we are going to have this model forever, like until the end of Isaac, we are going to still have this OD model. It's not that, but it's basically that we have our OD model that we don't have the need to change it every year. Yes, we can still adapt the metrics because in the end, like the OD model needs to shape like the current context that we are, but we still have the same elements, the same direction that we'd like to go. So it's basically the main foundation that we had to build the whole OD model. And then based on that, I'm gonna now explain to you like, okay, what are actually the elements of the OD model? So when you are doing actually this research, as I explained to you, like for example, the elements that you used to have, it was for example, better, faster, more, sustainability, and like HDI, more focus like in each one of the departments. Now, when you think about the elements, we'd like to make it more clear. So basically, we have actually three options when you think about the whole process. That it was to have it focus on Isaac 2025, Isaac subsystems, or keep the same as we have in 1920. But then in the whole process with the whole inputs, we actually decided to go in the direction of Isaac subsystems because it was actually very close to Isaac 2025 in a way of like, I mean, the Isaac 25 is about the subsystem, like the way that you analyze and set everything for the roadmap in the direction that we are going. But also because we don't have the need of, for example, of change everything again when the vision ends, for example. So like it's something that is still more stable. And also like the subsystems of the organization in the end set the framework to design decisions. So basically it should really shape everything that we are doing, also based on the subsystem that we have. So based on that, it's not exactly the same names that we use for the subsystem, but like we try to define some specific points that makes more sense connected with the exact subsystem. But basically the elements of that is gonna drive this OD model is gonna be basically programs development, human resource, finance and sustainability, and business development. So it's basically the 4 points, the 4 elements that's gonna drive the OD model, and you're gonna see now it inside the whole HDI and PDI and everything. So as I said to you, we are gonna keep having the HDI and PDI, The only small difference is that basically PDI is not called Product Development Index anymore, but now Program Development Index. It's just a matter of name, but basically the idea is the same. So we're still gonna have like the HDI, PDI and HDI like in a projection in terms of graph, in terms of data, just for you to have it in mind. It's not gonna change. And just to give you a context in terms of HDI, you remember that we have this model before, that it was basically finance, people, and market. So now I'm going to present to you how it's going to be the HDI in the OD model of 2021. The HDI of 2021, we are going to be have two, I would say, parameters that is going to drive the metrics. So basically, the two parameters, one is based on the process, and then one is based on the performance. So basically the process is like that kind of metrics, that kind of steps that you need to do to reach your goal. And basically the performance is basically the goal, like what is gonna mean the performance in that department, for example. So based on that, the elements that is gonna be inside the HDI is gonna be HR, finance, and BD. When we see like the whole elements, for example. So basically these three ones, they are gonna be inside the HDI. So you can just have it in mind. And then now when you talk about the metrics itself, when you go for HR, HR is going to have a weight of 30% in HDI when you do the whole calculation. And in terms of process, what you're going to be analyzing in terms of process for HR is going to be the percentage of retention rate. That's going to have a 50% weight inside the HR calculation. And then performance, we are going to have a percentage of ideal structure, the ideal HR that you should have in your entity. That's basically also 50% in the calculation of HR inside the HDI, for example. So the two things that we are working on, that we are calculating, that we are focused in HR is basically the retention rate and the ideal structure that you should have in the entity. And then when you actually go for finance, finance actually has a bit more of weight, that's basically 35% when you do the whole calculation of HDI. And basically, when you go for the two metrics that we have basically process and sustainability that has a weight of 50%. And basically, when you go for performance, is basically the numbers of months of cash reserves that is basically 50% as well. So basically, they have like an equal weight when it's doing the calculation of finance as a metric. When we actually go for the new metric that we have, that we didn't have this amazing metric before, this amazing element before, that is basically business development. Business development is going to have 35% inside the calculation of HDI. And basically the metrics that we're analyzing in BD is basically first in process, we're analyzing the percentage of partner retention. That's going to weight 25%. We are going to also analyze in performance the numbers of new contracts. That is basically 25% as well. And then also the amount of revenue recognized, that is basically 50%. So you can see that like BD actually has three metrics, where actually the amount of revenue recognized has a bit more of weight because it's reflect more on the performance and what the network is really pushing and striving for. So it's basically like these are the three main, the three elements that we are analyzing HDI, and now the metrics that we are analyzing inside that. So you can keep your question for later. I'm also going to give you time for that. But just to save time, moving actually for the PDI, that I hope that you're actually super excited for that. But basically just to remember like how the whole metrics that you're analyzing before, we actually have better, faster, more, and sustainability as elements that they were driving the PDI. And then actually now the new PDI that we have, we are actually going to focus on delivery, marketing, and sustainability. So it's basically the program delivery, the program marketing, the whole attraction, and also the program sustainability. And for that, we are going to be analyzing, of course, the program's development, that is basically GV, GTA, and GT. Also, I'm going to talk a bit later, but also membership, when it's going to be launched and everything, it's also going to be included in the PDI because it's basically one of the programs that they're going to have in the organization as well. But for now, consider that we don't have like its launch and like it's still finalizing everything. It's not really here, and I mean, I would give you spoilers if I would put it here. So, but it's just to align some expectation what you can expect in future as well from membership in terms of PDI. But it's basically the three things that you analyze in terms of PDI. And then when you go for the metrics itself, I'm actually going to explain the metric in terms of OGX and ICX, because in all the products we are analyzing the same. There is just a slight difference between OGX and ICX. That's why I'm going to like try to split it a bit, the explanation. But when you go for OGX, we have the three main parameters that we're analyzing. That the first one is basically delivery, the program delivery. And then for that, we are going to be analyzing the goals versus achievements of approvals and the goal versus achievements of realizations. And then the delivery itself is going to have 30% weight in the whole calculation of the program itself. And then when you go for marketing, it's going to be the percentage of conversion rate of signups to applicants, and it's going to have a weight of 20%. And then the other one is basically sustainability. That is basically the program sustainability level. That is going to be basically 50% weight in the calculation of that program when you calculate the PDI of that program specifically. So it's basically the whole data related to OGX. As you can see here, we are not really like focused on growth. It's going to be basically about the entity focus on goal versus achievement. Each one of these metrics, that's basically approvals and realizations. And as you can see as well, marketing is also included in PDI now because it's part of the customer flow. So it's going to make more sense when you think like in this way about the program itself. When you actually go for ICX, as I said, there is not a lot of difference. It's just a small thing. Like the delivery is the same. Sustainability is also the same, but we don't have any marketing metrics for ICX because now we don't have like any kind of, I would say, data or metrics specifically that it would make more sense like for all the entities. So that's why we didn't define yet. And then instead of like delivery have only 30% as OGX, now it's gonna have 50%. Consider that you don't have any metrics to analyze in marketing. So it's basically that you can see in terms of OGX and ICX. And then when you talk overall about like the two index, that's basically HDI and PDI, just also to give you some perspective. When you're gonna calculate the OD index, that's basically the HDI and PDI together, HDI is actually gonna have 70% of weight, and PDI is gonna have actually 30% of weight. Considering the whole pandemic and the current state that we have in the organization, we should really focus like in the resource and to make sure that we are sustainable as an organization. It's not that the programs doesn't really matter, but it's actually that we are trying to, at least in this period of time, really try to focus more like in the resource and now the, I don't know, the sustainability that you should get in each one of the entities. So just to give you this perspective, and then based on that, I just have one more thing to talk with you about. That's basically the graph that when you compare the old model of 1920 with the old model of 2021, just to give you some overall perspective when you talk about the metrics and everything. Basically, the old model 1920, as you can see, I mean, we have like the entities are everyone like really split it, and you have actually a lot of entities in the bottom of the graph. So it means actually that consider that we focus a lot on growth and like some specific data like in PDI that was not really reflecting in all the realities of the entity. It was a bit hard to really analyze like some like entities that didn't deliver a lot of exchange or entity that like didn't deliver a big volume of exchange, for example. So it's actually like it was actually the screenshot I took from the last update that you have of the old model, that it was from the date of February. So it was basically the state when you are analyzing the old model, it was basically the state that you have of the organization. And now when you actually look of the old model 2021, the projection of the data, this is actually how it look like. So you can see that it's much better distributed, the data and actually the entity as well. And you don't have a lot of entities actually in the bottom. And honestly, like the entities that actually are in the bottom or like much on the left is basically the entities that we don't have a lot of data because basically we don't get all the data basically from Expa. It's actually also from like Soga or HR service, BT service, and GFB. So if like one of them is like not filled, it's really hard also to have accurate data about this entity. So just to give you some overview, and just to sum up like this whole explanation that I was explaining about the main change of the old model compared with 1920 to 2021. As you could see, the main highlights is that we are not focused on growth anymore. We actually focus on goals versus achievements. Also, marketing is also now a process inside the program development. It's not really anymore like a specific element or something that you analyze apart. Also, we have a new metrics that's basically business development introduction. That's actually something new, is also very important for the context as well of the organization. And as I said, few entities in the bottom. So it's basically like with a lot, basically like of data. So it's mean that also the old model makes I'm not saying that makes no sense, but it's adapting better to the current context that we have and to the state of some entities as well. And also HDI is also better distributed in the graph, as you can see, because before we are also analyzing TM process, finance standards. So like this graphic, like this data didn't give a lot of like, I would say, like not really like the same data, for example, from entity to entity. It was like a bit different, for example. So now you can see like it's much more clear when you see in the graph. And then basically, besides all this whole explanation, something that also you're really excited about, that's basically the OD dashboard is finally back. So I know that like a lot of people, they are like request me a lot of like times that, okay, I want access and again to the OD dashboard. And then now it's back. So now you can find everything that I was talking about here in the dashboard. Is the same link that you used to use before. So we can just go to OD dash and you can find all the information there. So as I said, it's not really like something new. It's basically a revamp of the dashboard, okay? So what you can find there is basically the global OD model metrics. So basically you can find all the metrics that I explained to you here. We can also understand better the formula that we use to define the score of that specific metric. Also the time frame that you are analyzing. Also the source, for example, if you're getting from expert, from HR, surveys, from GFB or whatever. And also a very important thing is that also I'm gonna keep putting the update of the OD model data. So basically the last update is basically now that I'm launching in all the summits. But basically it was from, the data is from August to October. And then the next update is gonna be on the 5th of December. That is gonna be from August to November. And just one thing to have in mind is that the data, for example, if I'm launching the data in December, is also going to be until the month, the previous month. So it's not going to be the data about December because then it's the beginning of December. Just like to make sure in terms of the time frame of the data that we are using. And then also you can see the whole data, the whole projection and everything like in there, like in terms of human resource, finance, business, PDI and all the programs. So you can see exactly the data, the projection, the formula and everything. And also you can see the OD process as well is going to be the same framework. The OD people, you know that like before when you shut down the OD dashboard, we have a different spreadsheet to see the OD process data, but it's also now we are going to find everything in the same framework. And then also you can find some graphs. So basically not only the global one, but also you can go per region. For example, if you want to see Americas, Europe, MEA, or AP, it's also up to you. Like you can also find this whole data there. And then something also that we also had before, but like we try to revamp a bit to not put like the same, I don't know, like you find the same information that you used to find before. But basically also now we are going to have the entity organization development dashboard. So basically when you go to this tab, you can just choose the name of your entity. And then there you're going to see like all the general information about your entity. And also, for example, the metrics in terms of HDI, PDI, or the index, or the process, global versus achievement overall, not only per program, but how you are in terms of the state of the delivery based on the planning that we had in that certain time frame. And then in terms of OD model, you can also see, for example, the overview compared with the global entity and region. And also in terms of all the overview that you can see is basically the data projection. For example, you can see, for example, if you are good in certain program, if you need to improve in certain different points of HDI. So you can have this whole overview of the projection of the data, like in a graph. That's much more, I would say that it's easier to understand. And also you can also see the projection of the OD process, compare like with different regions, like with all the number, compare with your region and the global overview, and also the data projection of that. And also a very extra data that you're putting here. You can also now see the numbers of members that you have in your entity, the numbers of monthly reserves that we have, the revenue recognized, and the percentage of partner retention. And also a very like totally external data. We are not using that for anything in the model. It's just it's good just for you to get some insights, to get some inspirations and kind of things. But now I added the number of the youth that you have in the country in 2019 because we still don't have the data of 2020 finalized. But basically it was got from the World Bank data. But basically you can see the numbers of youth that you have in the country 2019. That is basically from 15 years old to 30 years old. And also we can see the youth reached in 2019 in terms of realization. So basically the impact that we did in 2019. So basically based on the numbers of youth that we have, we actually, I just put over the numbers of realization that we have in 2019, and you can see basically not really accurate, but a projection of like the impact that we had. So it's actually a cool data if you'd like also to play with, for example, I don't know, if you want to see the number of youth with the numbers of signups that you get, and you also like to play a bit with this data, you can also feel free to go with that. So it was just to give you some more insights that's not only related with the OD model itself, but it's also good for MCVPOD to come here and just take a screenshot and like have this report, for example, in your monthly reviews or quarterly reviews or whatever. And also, just a small thing as well is that you can also see not only the entity, but also the region. So for example, you can put Americas, Global, Europe, AP, MEA. So you can also see how is the region standing, like in the same data that we had for the entities. So it's actually good if you'd like to also compare some data with the region or different regions, something like that. And then basically that's it when you talk about the dashboard itself. And then just to finalize this space, let me just see how much time I have. Okay, I'm still on time. Just to finalize this space with like, okay, what else you can expect actually from the OD model. First, we are gonna have the next update in 5th of December, just have it in your mind. Second, we actually have the data is from previous month. So basically, I mean, as I said, we are gonna update in December, so the data is until November. Just finance data, all the finance data is actually from October, because from GFB, we actually like have these different timelines, so just have it in mind. And the third point, the next OD model update to be on IC 2021. I'm going to explain you a bit more about that in some specific point, what is really means this OD model update. And the other point is that basically use also the OD model in your MC replan. It's not only something that is cool and like, okay, I'm super excited in this launch and I'm not never use it again. So basically also use it as MC in your MC replanning. I'm going to explain you a bit more how you can do that. And just to explain a bit, okay, OD model 2021 by IC 2021, like what is really this update? Because I said before, I mean, I just said before that the idea is not really change anything in the OD model, but basically what you want to do, there are some metrics that are actually pending in the OD model. One of the elements that is pending is basically the membership program. As I said, like we couldn't really include it like right now. So basically I need to wait until the launch and then like see if by the next semester we can like have very accurate data and things to analyze in the OD model. So hopefully you can add it by IC 2021, this new program there. Also the ICX marketing metrics that we are going to start to build data and like start to analyze some kind of metrics and standards that you can follow based on that. So basically you can also add the ICX marketing metrics in there. And also the EWA and other initiatives, because it was also one of the ideas that we'd like to add in the OD model, that actually the EWA and the others initiatives is going to be more related to HDI. But we are still not really sure how you'd like to play with that. And also like we didn't have very accurate data. So it's also one of the points that is pending for the next update. And of course, like review the metrics and wait, because we are living a very uncertain period of time. So maybe like tomorrow we can just start to like do exchange again and everyone like be happy and like, I don't know, like we have the vaccine like in all the countries. So we really always need to like have this flexibility in terms of metrics and weights to make more sense for the period of time that you are living and that you are facing as an organization. So that's why we are going to have this another update. So just to make sure that we are also aware of that. But anything else is going to change on the model, okay? Like the elements, the direction, like the concept of the model is going to be exactly the same. We just have these pending elements and metrics to add in there. So just to be sure of that. And then now just to finalize this phase, actually, what is your role as OD responsible? So I explained to you that you can use in the MC replanning and everything. So I just would like to give you more clarity how you can do that. Because in the end, OD model is also like one of a very powerful tools that you can use in your department. So basically for the replan itself, what I'm going to suggest to you is that basically, for example, go to this tool, explore as much as you can, try to understand the formula, try to see the data, try to see where your entities is standing, what you need to improve. So identify basically the main bottlenecks and highlights. So for example, I'm very good like in this specific program, or I'm very good in this specific resource, but actually I really need to be better. I don't know, maybe in HR, because I realized that actually HR is one of the points that is really affecting my entity. So basically try to identify the key points that you can identify there. And then after that, define the priorities to the next semester. So basically, for example, okay, like now I can understand that like I'm in this context, and I mean, maybe I don't know, I'm bad in a lot of things. I need to improve a lot of things, but actually, what will be the main things that will make a lot of difference, like in this context and to my entity? So try to define these priorities, and then based on that, like set a strategy and focus for your entity. So maybe like, okay, now you understand that like you need to improve, I don't know, in HR, or maybe I don't know, like in IGV. So maybe how you can set this strategy and focus based on these main points that you have, like this insight through your analysis and everything. And of course, it's not only for replanning that we're having the model. So basically, in general, how you can actually use the model. First, I don't know, maybe you'd like to adapt to your reality. Like I love the global model, and then I would like to use this global model in my entity. Don't copy and paste, honestly, because in the end, that doesn't really make sense. Like try to see, for example, okay, I realize that now we are going with the direction of having BD, and I didn't have BD in my entity. So maybe how we would like to add BD, if it's BD makes sense for you to analyze your entity. Or maybe I realized that, I don't know, we are still counting numbers of realizations or approvals, but maybe we should focus more on goal versus achievement to also improve the goal versus achievement of my entity. So how we could actually play with the model and better adapt to your entities. Don't just copy and paste, because it's not really the idea. It should make sense for your entity, not like just copy and paste from other entities or from the global model. And second, use it during monthly and quarterly review. It's not something that when you remember that the model exists, you just go there and check. So basically try to also bring this data to your team, to talk about that, to see like what is the state, how you can get better and everything. Also analyze the data of the entity constantly. Is not something, as I said, that you're gonna just, oh, okay, I need to check it like every 6 months. So maybe you can also see the improvements that you have from one month to the other and all this stuff. And of course, follow up the strategy. So maybe, for example, you decide to have a HR strategy, and then you can also see the improvement based on the data that you have in the model. So it's also something that can support you like in your daily routine and like in your daily life in the organization. So try to make it very useful. And then now I have basically 50 minutes. So in these 50 minutes, I'm gonna first check the chat, so I can see if there is any specific, let me just see if there is any specific thing. And it's the time that you can also check the, wait, that you can check the dashboard. 1 minute. Okay. Vina put in here, Vina, thank you so much. Gracias. She sent me everything on WhatsApp, so I not lose all the message on the chat. Okay, I'm going to start to answer some questions. And then it's the time as well that you can explore a bit better, like the dashboard. The first question that I have here is that Abelardo asked, do we have working space to find ways to align our old model to the global one? I actually didn't really, we don't have relay space. I don't know if they during the RPM agenda, you're going to have a space for that, because I'm not sure if you already have the planning space. But maybe if you have the planning space, maybe you can work on that. But I'm not sure. Maybe Vina can give you a better direction in terms of the agenda. But in this phase of the call, we are not going to have it because I have a very short time. I only have 15 minutes left. But in case if you'd like to, I don't know, like having workspace as OD network, we can also like try to plan something for the next month, for example. I think can be also cool for the network as well. But I mean, I think Vina can give you a better direction in terms of that if you're having the RPM. The second question, do we have to adapt all the models to the global one? Not exactly, honestly. Like you can adapt if you want to shape a bit better the direction that we are going, but you are not obliged to if it doesn't make sense for you. So I'm not gonna say like, oh, just copy and paste or just try to put out the metrics, but in the end, like you don't really need to adapt all the everything to that we have in the global model now. So don't really worry if it doesn't make sense for you, just don't. and that's it. I will not force you to do that. But if you'd like to discuss a bit more, like to get some insights how to do that, then we can just talk about it. We have here Haley asking about will there be old model data updates on the dashboard monthly or quarterly? It's gonna be monthly. So basically, the data is from August to, because when I put like August to November, is basically the time frame that you're gonna see the data there. So basically, you're gonna see, because there are some specific metrics in the old model that is not per month, but actually you're analyzing a whole period of time. So for example, BD metrics, we're analyzing a certain period of time in the metrics. So basically you also can get like these insights like related to that. So basically, but every month we're gonna have the update of the model overall. So just have it in mind. Another question Osma asked, what is the difference between retention rate and idea structure? Basically, the retention rate is is basically like the number of people that you are keeping in the organization. There is a slight difference, honestly. Like someone already asked me the same question. But basically, the idea structure is not only about like if you are retaining the people, but it's actually if you have the ideal HR that you should have. So maybe, for example, I retain the people in the organization, but I still, for example, I have today 300 people in my entity. But in the end, I'm retaining them like every month. I still have the same people in the organization, but actually I should have, I don't know, like 400 people. So you still don't have the ideal HR structure that you should have. So it's basically this difference when you think about retention and ideal HR. Natalia asked, partner retention will include ICX? No, basically this partner retention is related to BD. Actually is a very good question, because the idea is that partner retention is actually going to be, is the plan, it's not that's going to be, but it's basically one of the idea to be one of the bottom lines for ICX marketing. So we still don't have exactly this data when you think about ICX programs related to that. But it's basically one of the ideas that you want to have to put as ICX marketing as metric. But yeah, like the BD one should be only focused on the one that's connected to BD in the end. Second question, if an entity doesn't run BD, it will still count for the metrics? No, if you don't have BD, actually I need to check if there is anything that is affecting the data. But if you don't run BD, you should not have the metrics, like you should not be affected by that. But I'm just gonna check it in the OD model, because I don't think it's accurate now that you asked that. But it should not be affected. If you don't have BD, you don't count in the metrics. So for example, you should not put your entity down, for example, like in the data. Carlo, how is revenue recognized at work? So it's basically the numbers of money that you are getting BD, and it's actually, I think, is already answering the already answering the next question. So let me explain to you like the revenue recognized. So it's basically the amount of money that is going to be recognized from BD, and basically all the BD initiatives that we have. That's basically, for example, you have a partner that is going to deliver through GV, GT, Youth Speak, and all these BD initiatives is also going to be included in there. Is being included there. The amount of money is actually, the currency is in CAD, so it's basically Canadian dollars. So basically, when people the BD needs to submit the goal, the achievement in terms of revenue, they submit in CAD. And one of the points that we realized that when you are doing this calculation is that basically, it was like basically how can I say? That it was not really fair, because for example, if I got $10,000 in Brazil, but I actually also took $10,000 in the Netherlands, it's not really like fair compared with the economy in each one of the countries. So basically, we actually put the data of GDP over that. So it's basically, we are actually calculating the economy, the data of the economy in the country to make it fair and better distributed inside the entity. It's the same way that you're actually doing GFB. So we are just copying the same idea for the BD calculation as well. So it can be actually fair in the end. So you're not being compared like your economy, like, I don't know, in Americas with the economy in Europe, because actually the currency can really like have a lot of weight in certain entities, for example. I don't know if it was clear. Let me check now, because I was checking what Virnia sent to me. But I need just to check if there is any other questions. Is it clear? I hope I answer everything clear. Okay. Any more questions? Dun, dun, dun. Why to measure sustainability both in programs and in finance? So basically, the sustainability that you are measuring is basically the sustainability of the program itself. So we are making sure that the program is sustainable. The sustainability that we actually have in finance is basically the sustainability of the entity overall. So basically, it also includes the entity. Like all the points that is not only the program, so basically like the money that the entity is getting also with the expenses and everything. So there is a whole different calculation. So also that's why we have like we have still sustainability in programs and also sustainability entities, because it can be very different when you're analyzing the whole context, just because of that, honestly. And also it's not only about the MC sustainability, it's also the entity. So it's also include LCs and everything. So it's a whole overall analysis in terms of data. I hope it answered your question, Natalia. Any more questions? Okay, actually, Vinny has here a very good question that besides using in all entities, how the model is going to be used in the next term. So basically, also as a IVPOD, one of the main focus that I want to have like related with the old model is actually that we can create very strong reports as well to actually identify, for example, some kind of trends that you have like based on the data that you have like a certain period of time. Also to try to get insights and like some kind of not only trends, but some kind of like, I don't know, highlights and like main red flags that we also have in the network, for example. So it also can provide me some insights, not only as a AIVP EOD, but also like as a person that is working with the network. And also my role is also going to be connected with as well with the artists, that Vina is one of them. So basically also, for example, this tool can also be used by the regional office to also get some insights related to the kind of trends, but also the kind of data that we have in that region, in that entity, or even though in the whole regional office, because it's also something that we wanted to connect more, that is not, for example, the OD model is not only to be used by the MCVP's OD, but also as the global structure that we have in the organization to understand better this data, to understand better where the network is going, to understand better where we are standing as an organization. Because as I said, in the end, like we don't have anything that bound us as an organization financially or legally speaking. So we really need to have a very powerful tool to try to understand, okay, what is the state, but where do we would like to go as an organization. So we really want to like to use the OD model as this tool to really like make a lot of difference in terms of support and in terms of strategy that they'd like to drive in the network. So what I can like in terms of more specific action that I would say is that like we are going to have in future like more clear reports and like clear insights from the network globally, so that the network can also have access to that. So you can also understand a bit more, for example, in terms of trends and why the organization is going this direction. But of course, internally, we also would like to understand better like this trend and how we can use this model to drive this change in the end in the organization. So yes, we have here another question, I think. Can we contact you after for more doubts, or the link, or there is a link we can go. You can just contact me, because I think it's better like to, because I think there are some questions, for example, that I was receiving before, even the last launch that we had last year, that it was a very specific question. So I prefer like just to talk with the person directly. So if you have any kind of questions or any kind of maybe issue, for example, if your entity doesn't have like, for example, the easing the bottom because of lack of data or something, also talk with me directly, because we can just manage. It's not something, oh, I didn't submit, like I cannot have the data, because in the end it's going to be very cool for all of us to have like this data very accurate and reflecting on what the organization is like in this period of time. So if you have any kind of question, you can just approach me. Don't really worry. I'm super open for that. So you can just approach WhatsApp or email. You can find it also in the global contact list, and you can also find it in the global dashboard, the OD dashboard. So it's also fine. Cool. What else? Do you have any more questions? We have basically 3 minutes to go. I'm actually reading the chat. We are so excited. So cute. I miss Americas. I really miss it to be home. This energy, super cool. So okay, people, if you have any more questions, I also don't want to delay the agenda. You can just approach me. I'll be really happy to help you with that. I hope it was super clear. I hope it was super useful. It's gonna be super useful for you as well. I know that some of you are really excited to do that. But basically, yes, here we are with the new OD model. I see you soon for the OD responsible. I see you soon. For the others, just approach me, and that's it. I hope you enjoy, access the dashboard, and that's it. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Mire esa mulata como mueve la cintura. Para ese movimiento, mulatona, para. Mire esa mulata como mueve la cintura. ¡Ay, por Dios! Mire esa mulata como mueve la cintura.